Dr. Tomass, you were just saying that Washington may not have such a positive response, even though this is a peace agreement. We would surely expect them to be rejoicing that there's hope for the region.
Yeah, that is if politicians in Washington are interested in peace, because this has never been one of the objectives. I mean, if Washington was interested in peace, it would not have engineered it wouldn't have endorsed the arming of the protests and the escalation of the civil conflict in Syria. So peace is the last thing that many politicians want in the United States. That said, there are people who are, let's say, pro-President Trump, those who trust him, those who trust his instincts, are happy about the withdrawal of the U.S. troops, and they would be happy about any peace deal that may take place in Turkey. So the problem is, I think, for those American forces that are unhappy is that the prospects of the creation of an independent Kurdish state in the northeast of Syria, now that prospect has gone. So for that reason, they don't see any positive outcome from the current deal, neither from the deal that the vice president brokered with Turkey, nor the current deal between the two Russian and Turkish president.
One thing that seems very strange, that we're almost taking for granted, that a group in Washington seem to think that it's a good idea to create a new state out of nothing, disregarding the fact that this would mean cutting up several countries in the meanwhile. What gives them the sense that they have the right to even consider that?
Yeah, well, there has been a plan a long time ago, actually, probably from the time that the French were in Syria after World War I. The idea of creating another state, something like Israel in the Middle East, was something that people thought about. So this is not entirely new. It's just that it came back to the forefront during the civil war in Syria, or during the armed conflict in Syria. So the idea is to have another Western base. You have on one hand Israel, on the other hand you want another Western base right in the middle of all of these countries. So the notion of redrawing the maps and breaking the countries into smaller parts, that is not a concern. I mean, that's not. In their view, that's not a bad thing. To the contrary, they would want to weaken all of the countries so that they don't project their power, and most importantly, they don't threaten the security of Israel. So from that perspective, I think that's why people would be dismayed, because they will see an end to that project.
This is almost a 19th century view on how to create a world. So if this project of theirs is blown out of the water, surely they can, we're now in the 21st century, it's 2019, surely it's the politicians must understand it's time to move on and join the reality of today's world, where people want peace in their homes. They want to have a safe daily life. Isn't that something that Washington should be supporting?
Yeah, maybe in public, supporting in public, in speeches and so on, but practically speaking, each group has its own plan. The regional powers have their own plan. Washington works according to the pressure groups that take it this way or that way. I mean, if we are speaking about ordinary Americans, most Americans are not interested in the Middle East in any way. Most Americans don't know exactly the geography of the Middle East. So it's mostly about the interest groups that are funding Congress, or the interest groups that are putting their weight behind the U.S. political system. And these interest groups, part of these interest groups is a group that believes into breaking down the Middle East into smaller parts, redrawing the maps. The invasion of Iraq, for example, was one of the, let's say, one of the means to do that. That was the starting point of all of that project. The invasion of Iraq was not supposed to stay just in Iraq. I mean, the plan was actually to go into Syria. That didn't work out for many other reasons. And you could also understand the war in Lebanon, for example, the 2006 invasion, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, also within that context. So, so I don't see the idea of generally speaking of powerful countries would sit down and they will only want to thinking about how to establish peace. You know, they are governments make policy in response to pressure, and the pressure, political pressure in the United States, is that the Middle East should be broken down. And the notion of breaking the Middle East down, it's not just about eastern Syria, it's also about the western Syria. I mean, the plan was to break western Syria also into several parts, you know, several ethnic religious parts, such as, you know, the Alawi state, the Sunni state, the Druze state, and so on. Also break down Lebanon into many small states, so that you will have people would be busy, get busy fighting with each other, and instead not projecting their power outside. Now that could also apply to Turkey and Iran, the notion, and Saudi Arabia. I mean, if you actually look at the maps, the sort of maps that were drawn right after the invasion of Iraq, you will see that those plans extended all the way through Saudi Arabia. That Saudi Arabia would be broken down into three pieces. So looking at it realistically, the notion that we want to establish peace in the Middle East, that's not a